Hello and welcome back to Grief, the emotional shitstorm you never signed up for. My name is Margaret. I am a women's life empowerment and holistic grief coach, and I am your guide through this wild, messy journey we call grief. So, if you've been feeling like grief is about so much more than whatever it is that you've lost, a person, a thing, then you are 100% right. So today we are talking about the hidden layers of grief, the ones that nobody really warns you about, the ones that knock you flat when you're already struggling to breathe and they leave you drowning. So let's dive into today's topic. When most people think about grief, they think about one event, right? They think of the death of someone you love. They think about the ending of a relationship, the loss of a dream, or the loss of a job. And yes, that is definitely part of it. Grief, it's triggered by an event, right? We experience any loss or change and we feel the grief. But what nobody tells you, and what I wish someone had told me, is that grief can be really, really sneaky. And it doesn't just take away the person or the thing that you lost, it actually takes everything that was connected to them, right? You don't just end up grieving the person, you grieve the future you thought you had with them. You grieve the version of you that you thought you were going to be and who existed when they were still here. And you grieve the loss of the sense of safety and identity and hope and even the trust in the world. So grief, it's a thief and it steals from places that you didn't even know you were vulnerable. So I want to talk about 5 hidden losses that leave you reeling. And as I go through them, just listen and see what comes up for you because you may recognize yourself in some or all of these. And if you do, just it's a note to pay attention. So the first thing that grief can take from you is a loss of your identity. You could be left wondering, who am I now without them, without this job, without this marriage, without my dream that I thought I was going to make happen? So when grief steals your identity, it shakes the foundation that you see yourself, right? One of the biggest things that we do as humans is we categorize ourselves and describe ourselves in whatever roles we happen to be playing. So we're a mother, we're a spouse, we're a oh my goodness, a parent, an astronaut, a doctor, a lawyer, an entrepreneur, an employee, the carpool driver. You could be a daughter, a cousin, a sister, everything, all of your roles you categorize and you put those all together to create your identity. But when you lose someone close to you, whether it's a spouse or a child or a parent, now we're left with a void where that role used to be. And that is how we form part of our identity. So now we're left with a hole in our identity. So without this role, if you are no longer a wife or you're well, not that you're not a daughter anymore, but your mom or dad are gone, then who are you? Right? You can't, it's going to be really hard to act that role when you don't have it anymore. Say you've lost a job and you were managing a team, you're no longer that manager. So without this role, who are you? And I find that this particular question and the exploration around identity is a huge part of what I work on with my clients as they're trying to figure out who they are now after their loss. Deep down inside, you're still the same person, but things have changed and you've got to reassimilate and figure out where you fit in the world now. So, the biggest one I say that grief takes away is your loss of identity. The second one is the loss of community and belonging. When you experience grief and you lose someone, people really don't understand what you're going through. They may have gone through it themselves, but what I said before, and I'll say it again and again, is that when we experience things, how we experience it is different from how other people experience it. And so we really, as much as we may have experienced the same thing, like we all experience COVID, some of us have lost parents or spouses, then we can connect with those people. But deep down, we don't all understand. So we'll find that our friends will start to drift away. Our family may not know what to say to us. And you can start to feel like you're living in a world where you no longer fit. So you also feel different. You feel different. You've gone through an experience that has changed you. So how are you relating to those around you? You may find that the people you hung out with before, you have nothing in common with them anymore. And you may, drift apart from friends on your own. So that loss of community and belonging is the second loss that grief can take. The third is your loss of routine and purpose. Maybe you spent your days caring for this person or planning a future with them that no longer exists. Or, like I mentioned before, managing a team that you're no longer managing. So now every day maybe feel empty, confusing. What are you supposed to do now? How do you adjust to this new existence and create this new routine where that person, job, dream, whatever no longer exists? And you may start questioning everything. Grief does that for us, right? It's like a wake-up call, and we do start to question things. But now we have to establish a new routine. Maybe we need to reconnect to our purpose, and maybe our purpose isn't as strong as we wanted it to be or what we thought it was before. Maybe that has shifted, and that's okay. All right, so now we've got the first three: loss of identity, the loss of our community and belonging, and the loss of our routine and purpose. And we also now, number four, have the loss of safety and trust. When life drops the floor out from underneath you once, it's hard to believe that it won't happen again, right? So anxiety, fear, hesitation, they start to creep in, and they often set up shop because our brains are wired to keep us safe, right? And when we experience a grief event and we lose someone that we cared really deeply about, or we lose our job, or we lose our dream, our brains take that as a loss that is a threat and a pain, whether it's emotional, physical, mental pain. For our brain, that's something we need to be protected from. And so our brains start to do things to help protect us. Brings in anxiety, fear, hesitation. Oh my goodness, don't go near that person that you're starting to like because you might get your heart broken again. They may die, they may go away, it may not, you're going to experience that pain. And so our brains interpret the experiences that we have as painful and a threat. And they're going to do everything that it can to avoid that again. So our brain, it's trying to protect us. So it will try and tell us that we've lost safety, we've lost trust, and therefore we can't keep going in a different direction, right? Maybe we've been through a divorce, but we meet somebody new, and all of a sudden we're starting to feel a little nervous, we're starting to feel anxious, we're starting to hesitate, we're starting to have this fear that maybe this relationship isn't going to last. So is it even worth going forward with, right? Our brain can play so many tricks on us. All right, the fifth thing we're going to cover is the loss of joy and innocence. There may be a bitterness or a heaviness that wasn't there before when you experience something. You may feel that life is unfair. And when we experience something, we can't ever take that back, right? Things that maybe used to light you up now may feel empty or pointless. And you've experienced something big and emotionally painful, and you can't ever unexperience it. And that has an impact on you, and it changes you. And I think innocence is not really knowing what is out there that could hurt you or upset you. And so when you've experienced deep grief, that innocence is ripped away from you. I know a lot of women that I work with feel guilty for wanting to feel joy again. So their grief has really robbed them of that ability to feel joy. And just an FYI, it is okay to feel joy again. You can still be sad and upset about the person that you've lost, but you can also feel joy again. In fact, you are here on this earth to feel joy. So just try and open yourself up to that. I know it can be hard, but it is something to really pay attention to. So grief isn't just about what you've lost. It's about everything that loss has touched in your life. And that's why it feels so big, so exhausting, so overwhelming. When I first really sat with my own grief, and I think anyone who's been listening to the channel already may have already heard that I went through a lot in my life. 6 years of bullying when I was a child between grade 3 and grade 8, all the mean girls, right? Didn't know if I would have friends or not every day in a small town, small school. And so it made a big hit on my self-esteem and self-worth. And that was a big, huge, loss of friendships over and over and over. So that was a big one, the bullying as a child. I went through 6 years of infertility, struggling to have children. and going through process after process that didn't work. That was hugely disappointing, saddening, depressing, a lot of grief around that. Mad at myself for not being able to do the things that my body is supposed to do. And then I did get pregnant and I went into early labor. And at 5.5 months, my twins were born. And 3 days later, my son passed away. And so now there's the death of my son. And then it took a toll on our marriage. And there was a lack of trust in our marriage. And I lost my marriage 8 years later. Those are the highlights of the highlights, the grief highlight reel. But I've also suffered so many other losses, right? I've lost aunts and uncles and grandparents and pets and jobs, and we've lost a business. And so when I really, really sat with my own grief and started my own healing, it wasn't just about the losses that I'd experienced themselves. I was realizing how every part of my life had been touched by them. Like from the way I showed up, I was always being this chameleon and being who I thought people needed me to be in order to be accepted and to belong. So I wasn't always showing up as myself. In fact, I lost who I was for quite some time. And there was also the way that I trusted people. For me, I tended to trust probably easier. And I was excited to trust people. I wanted to give people a chance. And so I trusted everybody right from the start, good or bad. But if they broke my trust, that never came back, ever. I would try, but no, once you lose my trust, you don't get it back. And that was my brain's way of protecting me as well. But most of all, I found that there was this lack of trust in myself, making the decisions that were best for me, setting boundaries, trusting that I was going to be able to do the things that I was needed to do for myself. And then there was also the way that I saw myself when I looked in the mirror. There were days I couldn't even recognize the woman staring back at me. And honestly, terrified me because if grief could take all of these things away from me, how was I supposed to rebuild myself from the ground up? I was starting from scratch. But here's the truth that I eventually discovered, and it's something that I want to share with you because it might take the pressure off and the weight off and the expectation off of how you are going to heal from this big grief that you've been through. You don't have to rebuild yourself all at once. I'm going to repeat that again. You don't have to rebuild yourself all at once. You just have to start piece by piece, breath by breath, choice by choice, just one step at a time, and give yourself some grace and compassion that it's going to take the time that it takes. So if you're listening to this right now or watching along and nodding and feeling this heavy lump of recognition in your chest and screaming to yourself, oh my gosh, this is me, this is me, I want you to ask yourself 3 big questions. 3 questions. You can pause and write them down as you go. What else did I lose when I lost my loved one, my job, my dream? What parts of me are grieving that I haven't even named yet, that I don't even know about? And what would healing look like if I gave myself permission to grieve all of it, not just the obvious parts? And this deep personal healing work matters more than you can imagine. Naming your hidden grief matters because you can't heal what you refuse to acknowledge or you don't even know is there. Some of us will push stuff aside, even though it's there, and we're going to refuse to deal with it. And then there's the other side of it where we've experienced things that we didn't even know had a grief component. It's really, really important to bring all of that to the surface, but know that you do not have to do it alone. I'm here. There are lots of people out in the world who are there to support you and to walk this journey with you. And if you want a starting place, a way to actually see the amount of grief that you're carrying with you, I invite you to download my free grief assessment. It's a simple, powerful tool that helps you to uncover where grief might be hiding in your life because you can't heal what you aren't aware of. So the link to the grief assessment is down below in the description. Grab it, take a breath, and know that you're already doing the brave work. And I'm walking this messy, beautiful path right alongside you. I've done a lot of healing, but as you know, grief is with you for the long haul. And so there is always healing to be done. So until the next time, be gentle with yourself and remember, you are worth it. I'll see you next time on Grief, the emotional shitstorm you never signed up for.